All right, welcome to New York City and Writer's Block. I am Bill Reiter. Like the rest of you, I am shocked by the contract for Bryce Harper. We're going to dive into that. We'll talk to Brady Quinn live from the Combine, and we'll celebrate Dwayne Wade and a ridiculous game winner buzzer beater last night. That and much more begins right now. All right, the Bryce Harper free agency saga is over. For the Phillies, the journey, a long one, is just beginning. Bryce Harper and Philadelphia have reportedly come to terms, and it will be a very, very long relationship. 13 years, and according to their own Jim Bowden, reportedly $330 million. That's more than Giancarlo Stanton's deal. That's more money than any deal in the history of Major League Baseball. Those 13 years, by the way, there is a no-trade clause. There's no opt-outs. This is Bryce Harper committing, presumably, for the rest of his career until he's 39 years old to the Philadelphia Phillies. Congratulations, Phillies, ? They're the big deals. And before we get into kind of what it means for Philly, and obviously the Dodgers and the Giants were one of the two, were making a good enough offer that the Phillies felt like they had to do something aggressive. This is aggressive. I think shocker is not hyperbole here. So the West Coast, as a result of this offer, misses out. He will not be a Dodger. He will not be a Giant. The balance of power is going to change in the National League, and it benefits one of the teams on the eastern part of the country. Dive into the information a little bit here. Phillies win total now set at 89.5. That's pretty solid. And their odds to win the World Series markedly better on the news. From 18-1 to 12-1, and just on the National League side to win the NL pennant, from 9-1 to 6-1. But just like the deal itself and all of our reactions, because I personally hate it, we've got Philly fans here at CBS Sports HQ who are celebrating, blowing up the phones of us doubters, pointing out all the reasons Harper's going to be amazing. We have the same kind of disagreements in the analytics and the numbers and the data, while Vegas, very smart on baseball and all things sports, likes the deal for Philadelphia. Sportsline does not, sees it as a marginal benefit this season for this Philly team. But for those of us, and I'm one of these guys that has Bryce Harper in our fantasy leagues and was hoping he'd end up in a place where he's going to put up some big numbers, here's the lineup that he's going to be a part of with the Philadelphia Phillies in a ballpark where presumably he is going to hit a lot of home runs. And you look at that, you feel pretty good. You feel pretty good if you're Philly. Don't love the pitching staff, but they have gone for it. They are going for it. Big additions this year, and the biggest is Bryce Harper. Now remember, this isn't a deal that can be or will be judged on February 28th, 2019, or February 28th, 2020. The real upside or downside of this contract is going to play out over, I can't say it with a straight face, over 13 years. Harper will be 39 when that contract comes to an end. In fact, if the Phillies make the World Series in his final and go to 7 in his final year, he'd actually be 40. He's an October birthday. Here are the players right now at age 39 who are still playing Major League Baseball. There's a few, but the guys that matter the most, Adrian Beltre is a good one. I think Albert Pujols is the better comparison and the more interesting comparison here in terms of age and long contracts. Pujols is a remarkable player. He should be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He is a game changer of a talent. But in that, 10-year deal with Anaheim when he left St. Louis many years ago, it only took a couple years for him to hit a quick and severe downturn. Now, to be fair, he was 34, 35, depending on how you assess it at the time. That's a long ways away for Harper, but there's a real chance that Bryce Harper, if he follows a similar model of Pujols, and when Anaheim landed Pujols, everybody celebrated and said what a great deal it was and forgot how smart, how remarkably intelligent the Cardinals are about how they use their resources. The same is true for Andrew Friedman, the president of operations for the Dodgers. The same is true for Farhan Zaidi, was the GM in LA, now the guy in San Francisco. I trust those two gentlemen to be a lot smarter about the decisions they're making than Philly. This deal is not going to age well. It didn't for Pujols. It probably isn't going to for Bryce Harper. And so that means you've got to, Philly fans, take advantage of the first half for 7 years, half of this contract starting this year. So it's congratulations, Phillies. Congratulations, Major League Baseball. You stole all the shine from the Combine. The sports world's talking about you. And congratulations, Bryce Harper. I hope this is where you want to play because you're going to be in Philly for the rest of your career. But it is a question mark as to whether or not this contract is a boon or whether it's going to cost them significantly in the long run. And let me just make a cross-sport comparison. Almost exactly a year ago, probably 13 months ago, Kirk Cousins became a member of the Vikings. It was a record-breaking contract in terms of guaranteed money. Everybody talked about the Vikings win, but the real proof takes time. Wasn't a good deal for Minnesota. This may not be a good deal for Philadelphia. I guess we will find out. And of course, over the next season, over the next 13 years, we will keep you informed here on CBS Sports HQ, your home for streaming sports, about everything Bryce Harper, the $330 million man, is doing for his new ball club. We're not losing track of the Combine. Brady Quinn going to join me live from Indianapolis in just a moment. We continue here on Writer's Block with me, Bill Reiter, on CBS Sports HQ. All right, welcome back into New York City. I'm Bill Reiter. This is Writer's Block on CBS Sports HQ. As promised, we're going live to Indianapolis right now. Brady Quinn is at the NFL Combine. Brady, what's going on behind you, man? It sounds like there's some commotion happening.
We got the bench press going on. We had the offensive lineman earlier today. Now we got the running backs throwing up some weights. So, always a fun drill. One of my personal favorites, clearly, here at the Combine.
All right, so I want to ask you, of course, about Kyler Murray not going to throw. And I'm wondering, as you talk to folks around the Combine and around Indianapolis, what the sense is, the fact that unusually he has some leverage here. I know he says he's committed to football, but if he changed his mind or didn't like his situation, there's probably going to be a baseball opportunity waiting for him. Will that have any impact potentially on where he could be drafted?
No, I don't think so at all. And I talked to a number of general managers and some that were pretty candid with me because some of these guys actually have a franchise quarterback, so they feel like they could kind of speak freely on this topic. And I just said to them, how big of a factor is it that he's not throwing? I said, honestly, it doesn't matter at all. We look at the tape. We're going to evaluate the tape. The medical and the interview is really going to be the biggest thing for him just because there is this perception that, and there will always be the case for him, is that he could eventually go back and play baseball. And that's something that whatever team drafts him, they're going to have to deal with that potential risk in the future. The biggest thing for him really moving forward, you can talk about the pro day. It's really a scripted event that he should be able to perform well. Really, it's the private workouts. Those are the things that no one talks about, where the teams take the time to fly out, in this case, probably to Norman, Oklahoma, or some sort of neutral site that's not at the facility where that team resides. And they're going to work him out, and they're going to take him through the types of throws, the types of drops, and do the types of drills that they want to test him on to see if he could potentially be their quarterback. So a number of general managers that I spoke with today discussed that and talked about that. And that's obviously where I think in his case where there's still a lot of value for him and to really prove himself to some of these NFL teams.
Brady, you mentioned the interviews, and every year it feels like we have some reporting that comes out about some of the crazy questions or the aggressive approaches of the folks in those interview rooms trying to solicit a response or test the young men that they're visiting with. Can you pull back the curtain a little bit for us and just give us a sense of whether it's Kyler Murray or some guy who's drafted in the 6th round, what they need to expect when they walk into those conversations?
You look, for any prospect, you have to expect the unexpected, and that could be a question that really catches you off guard, doesn't make any sense. I remember being asked about incidents that never happened in my past. People try to say that you had this happen or you had this happen, and really what the teams are doing, they're just testing you. They're testing you to see how you react. They're testing you to see if it'll upset you and potentially how you then respond, dealing with that sort of criticism. Because remember, the formal interviews that they have here at the Combine are only 15 minutes. And then they have informal ones that could be a little bit longer, but really you're dividing your staff up with how you go about handling those interviews. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for a lot of their investigative skills. I mean, they're going to potentially fly fly out some of these prospects to their facility or to their city. They might go to their school to work them out or interview them as well. So there's still a lot more to dig into, but you always got to stay on your guard. I will say this, from a lot of the running backs that I talked to today, they seem to give me the sense that teams aren't asking those funny questions anymore because a lot of it's become public, and it only makes them look bad, meaning the teams, if it gets out that they're wasting some of those precious minutes, those 15 minutes in the formal interviews, asking dumb questions.
Brady, it's interesting. I know you didn't throw at your combine, and everyone's talking about Kyler Murray not throwing at this combine. You walked us through why it doesn't matter, and the private workout does matter. Can you just give us a sense of whether it's Kyler Murray with his family or with his agent, how that strategy develops for a player like you, like him, under the spotlight, deciding not to do, in this case, what a lot of fans, media are hoping they're going to do?
Well, I think for a player in his position, one, he's got a lot of leverage because he doesn't have to play football, right? He's always got baseball in his back pocket. The other thing is, if you look at the tape, if you're grading the tape, I'd say he's the most talented quarterback in this draft class. So what really is there for him to prove? We see what his height is, we see what his weight is, we see what his hand size is. Those are some of the biggest question marks, and outside of the interviews that he's got to answer. It's not his ability to play the game. We know he's a dynamic player. So that's the first thought. And another thing is, if you think about it, he really committed and made this decision relatively late considering when his season ended. So he hasn't had probably a ton of time to prepare for drops under center, which is really what they ask you to do at the NFL Combine. You play the majority of his snaps from shotgun. That's the first thing. The second thing is I talked about the risk reward and talking with one of the general managers today, Les Snead from the LA Rams, again, a team that has a quarterback and doesn't need one, but he candidly said, look, regardless of what the perception is of how much you can help yourself or hurt yourself at the combine, in the back of our minds, we're always thinking if we see a ball hit the ground that a quarterback's throwing, we initially have a bad impression or a bad taste in our mouth about that. So why would you want to risk throwing to guys that you've never seen before, you don't have any sort of timing or rapport with, and risk a bad performance, this bad perception in the back of people's minds? So that's part of it. Now, for me, it's a different story. I had a torn PCL, wasn't 100% healthy. That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to participate in the combine, because I didn't want to have to worry about potentially either re-injuring it or not looking 100%. For Kyler Murray, I don't think that's the case. I just think this is more about the case of when he made the decision to commit to football and understanding that there's really not a whole lot for him to gain right now in the position that he's in.
Whether it's Kyler Murray or some of the other quarterbacks in this draft class, Brady, what are the measurements that you actually think matter? And as it relates to Murray, what's your reaction to what you've seen so far?
Hand size is a big one. Everyone's going to be talking about that because, it really talks about your ability to grip the football. And one of the differences between the college level and the NFL level is obviously the ball. It's not going to be as tacky or as broken as what you see from the college level. There's different standards that they allow at the college level compared to the NFL level. So you want to have a greater hand size in order to be able to grip the football. You play later in the season. You play in more adverse weather conditions. If you think about the college football season, it really ends around Thanksgiving, maybe the first week of December, and then you're going to play as a bowl game, but that's usually in a warm weather destination for the most part, or a dome if it ends up being sometime around, beginning of January. For the NFL season, they play all the way through December, and then there's a lot of teams that play somewhere up north where you're going to have wind, you're going to have rain, you're going to have snow, you have to deal with all that. Having a better grip on the football or bigger hand allows you not only one to control the football in those adverse conditions, but also be more accurate when you are throwing the football. So that's going to be one of the key measurements too that they're always looking at. If you're over 9 inches, that's always a good sign. It's not necessarily optimal, but usually you'd like to see a hand size that's closer to 10 inches.
Brady, whether it's Kyler Murray or Dwayne Haskins or anybody who's at the Combine, it's not like they're a mystery. There is so much tape over the course of their collegiate careers. How much value do you think there is for GMs and scouts with what they're going to see, what they're going to measure, what they're going to test in Indy? How much of a difference maker do you think the Combine should be in people's decision-making?
Probably 1 or 2%, to be honest with you. Again, if you walk into this and you've got an impression of a player based on what you've seen on tape, that's going to be the most accurate depiction of what this player is going to translate to be at the next level. Now, the medical's incredibly important. you're going to have your doctor poke and prod and look at all the things to get some sort of a grade and idea of how much wear and tear has he sustained, and what's everything look like. Can those joints hold up? And you best believe every organization is going to do their due diligence. The next thing is the interview. Now, this is going to be a player that not only one are you investing millions of dollars into, but you're also working with. So you've got to have a good working relationship. And there's times where, if they're on the fence about one player or another, and maybe they're of equal talent, they're going to go with the guy that they interviewed better and probably got along with better. So the interview portion becomes a big piece of it as well. And then the rest, as far as the testing, is just more of a baseline, right? And you could put together all the data and the metrics that they're using, whether it's to measure a player or look at his times when they're running or the bench press or their vertical, whatever else, combined with the on-the-field work. There's going to be things you look for. But at the end of the day, it's going to make up a very, very small portion compared to all the other due diligence these teams are going to look at. But really, the eye in the sky doesn't lie, and that's why the film still dominates.
All right, so as you look back at the film on all these guys, a lot of people have Nick Bosa as the number 1 overall pick when the draft finally rolls around. Is that the right call? Is he your number 1 pick in this draft if you were making the decision?
Well, as far as the top overall prospect, I'd put Quinn Williams ahead of him, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. I just think he's more of a complete player. He's more dominant, in particular this year. When you look at Nick Bosa, there's not a ton of tape to look at. Only played in 3 games this past season for Ohio State. And then really, if you go back to the 2017 season, he was rotated in, particularly rotated in on passing situations. So I think when you look at Nick Bosa, some of it's the measurables, the height, the size. You see the explosion and everything else that comes along with it, and some of what you saw on tape. But there's not a ton of tape to necessarily go off of. So you're kind of basing a little bit too on the fact that his dad was a first-round pick, Joey Bosa was a first-round pick, and he's got a similar motor and obviously the same upbringing. So you're betting on him being a hit just like his dad and his brother was, and being able to go into their transition to the NFL relatively easy. But for me, looking at Quinn Williams, he's the guy that jumps off the screen that I say, I'm not sure who's going to take him or when he's going to go, but he'd be my top overall prospect. The other kid is really Josh Allen. The way he's played the past 2 seasons for a team like Kentucky, he's really elevated their level of play. He's the most valuable player on that team, in particular on defense, the other being probably Benny Snell. But Josh Allen's a very, very talented player. I think he's going to test overly well, and he's another guy that probably isn't getting enough consideration for how good of a player he is.
Brady Quinn live from the Combine in Indianapolis. Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brady Quinn breaking it down. We're going to keep it going. Kyrie Irving had a little temper tantrum on the sideline yesterday. We're on the bench. We're going to show it to you. We're going to go inside the numbers on why maybe he needs to chill out a little bit when we come back to Reiter's Block here on CBS Sports 8. All right, welcome back into the show, and you see there the happiest teammate in America. The Kyrie Irving drama, the ugliness continues. The Celtics lose again. They're 0-5 in their last 5 games, I believe, without Kyrie, or with Kyrie as a part of the team. You see the body language swatting away the high five. Trust me, having covered the NBA for a long time, that is the look of a team, at least for the moment, that does not like its star player, and the reverse seems to be true. So we're going to go inside the numbers on Kyrie Irving and what things have looked like and felt like with him as a Boston Celtic this year. We started at the number 6. The Celtics, excuse me, I got it wrong. The Celtics have now lost 6 straight games. Hard to keep track of with Kyrie active. Boston has also won its last 6 games without Kyrie. The last time Boston won with Irving was all the way back on February 3rd. How about 25.1? In those 6 losses, Boston's point differential is minus 12.1 points per game. In the wins without their so-called star, plus 13. That is a 25.1 average point differential in the 12 games with and without the 6-time All-Star and the multi-time complainer. I'm not a Kyrie fan. How about 7.2? In the 6 losses, Kyrie is averaging 7.2 more points per game than Boston's second leading scorer. In the Celtics' 6 wins without Kyrie, the difference between their first and 6th highest scorer is only 5.2 points per game. We talked about this yesterday. Team basketball works. What Kyrie Irving is pushing for himself does not. How about 25.3? Boston's 6 highest scorers are averaging a combined 25.3 more points per game in the 6 wins without Kyrie versus the 6 losses with him. For some perspective, that combined total makes up for 3.1 more points per game than Irving's average in the 6 losses. 12.5. We got a couple more. 12.5. The Celtics are giving up 12.5 fewer points per game in their 6 wins without Kyrie compared to the losses of the 6 games he's played in with his teammates. Irving has the 185th, 185 best defensive rating in the NBA, which ranks 14th among all players on Boston this season. And finally, 0, reminder, Kyrie Irving has won 0 playoff games without LeBron James. Not a single one. The Celtics were just 1 game away from the NBA Finals last season, while Kyrie stood up for 0 of those games and didn't bother to show up for that one. If memory serves, he had an eye appointment, because that's, incredibly, incredibly important when your team is trying to make an NBA Finals. Let's do this. Let's end. By the way, how happy are Boston fans that it's not baseball and they don't have Kyrie for 13 years with no opt-outs and no trade clause? Let's end on a happy note, on a positive note, on a spectacular note. Dwayne Wade had a ridiculous circus shot game winner against the Golden State Warriors last night, his last game against Golden State. You see it there, the block shot, double clutch, kicking his legs in the air, off the glass, baby. That is greatness. That is a guy reaching deep down into his past and his excellence. And Dwayne Wade does not get the credit I think he deserves for his place in the game, overshadowed by so many players reaching down and getting it done. It was just cool because I can remember covering Dwayne when he and Kobe Bryant had that crazy rivalry. After the game, Wade talked about how Kobe Bryant was the inspiration for that moment, for that shot. I wonder when Kobe hit that game winner, in LA, when he hit it off the glass from the top of the key, I said, how is that possible? Thank you for showing me the way. Mamba mentality. You know what we're going to do? We're going to do this at some point between now and probably mid-April. We're going to honor Dwayne Wade. We've got a guy, P.A. David, who thinks he's a top 5 shooting guard of all time. Might give David a chance to make that case. I had this conversation with some friends in Miami the other day. I think Dwayne Wade is the better player by a small margin than Dirk Nowitzki over the course of their incredible careers, but Dirk is going to get more credit, I think, because of the way the game was evolved and how he was one of the shepherds of that. We're going to do a deep dive on both of those guys and give Dwayne Wade, what he rarely has gotten since LeBron left Miami, the respect and the credit he deserves. Very cool last night watching him summon some of that old greatness in those old tired knees. Congratulations, Dwayne Wade. Very, very cool moment. Congratulations, Phillies fans. Question mark. I guess we'll find out in the coming months and decade and change. 13 years, $330 million. We got a lot more of that on tap for you here on CBS Sports HQ the rest of the day. 30 minutes from now, Sportsline will let you know what things are looking like if you want to make, a little extra money, perhaps, if you're trying to. And we have a great show planned tomorrow. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar will be on the program. John Jones will be on the program. We'll give you some combine information. We have a great show tomorrow. We have a great rest of CBS Sports HQ the rest of the day. Thank you for being here. See you tomorrow on Friday.